everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a truly fascinating case study in leadership and corporate change today. Specifically, we're diving into the insights drawn from Carly Fiorina's 2006 autobiography, Tough Choices. You know, whether you're a seasoned executive or you're just starting to navigate the wildly complex world of office dynamics, there is an incredibly powerful playbook hidden within her career. So we're going to extract the core lessons from her journey and take a really close look at the actual architecture required to drive monumental change within an organization. Okay, let's dive right into this. Tough choices have consequences, but inaction has consequences too. This concept perfectly frames our entire explainer today. In the corporate world, we're so often paralyzed by the fear of making a wrong decision, especially when the stakes are sky high. But this idea that choosing to do nothing is, in itself, a massive, highly consequential choice is exactly the lens through which we need to view leadership. We're going to explore how making those difficult, high-stakes decisions is what ultimately defines a leader. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Shattering the glass ceiling. 2. Ascending the corporate ladder. 3. The HP Compaq Crucible. And 4. The architecture of leadership. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Shattering the Glass Ceiling. First female CEO of a Fortune 20 company. Listen, it's absolutely critical to understand the sheer historical magnitude of her appointment back in 1999. She didn't just crack the glass ceiling, she completely obliterated one of the absolute highest barriers in corporate America. Becoming the first woman to lead a massive Fortune 20 company like Hewlett-Packard is historic enough on its own. But Fortune also named her the most powerful woman in business for 6 consecutive years. She wasn't just present at the top. She was a dominant, undeniable force in business for over half a decade. And you know, when you're navigating an entirely male-dominated corporate environment, your mindset is your most vital asset. Do not let others define who you are. Do not let the limits of others' expectations define what you can achieve. This wasn't just some fluffy motivational phrase for her. This was an absolute necessity for her survival and her ability to thrive. I mean, if she had listened to the expectations set for her by the environment around her, there's no way she ever would have reached the executive suite. Moving right along to Section 2, Ascending the Corporate Ladder, from secretary to executive star. And this brilliantly illustrates her leadership credibility. We really have to look at the rapid, completely expectation-defying ascent she made through the ranks of telecom and tech. She didn't start with a golden ticket. Actually, after dropping out of law school, she began her corporate entry pretty humbly as a secretary at Marcus & Millichap. From there, she secured a role as a management trainee at AT&T. Notice the trajectory here? It's a steady, relentless climb. By 1996, she's orchestrating a massive IPO, and by 1999, she is at the absolute top as a Fortune 20 leader. That executive star status in 1996, it was cemented by this staggering number, $3 billion. While serving as a senior vice president at AT&T, Fiorina spearheaded the spin-off and initial public offering of Lucent Technologies, raising over $3 billion. It became one of the most successful and largest IPOs in U.S. history at the time. To put that into perspective, this is the precise moment her reputation as a formidable corporate strategist was locked in for sure. Which brings us to Section 3, the HP Compaq Crucible, high-stakes change and corporate politics. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer massive scale we're talking about. We're going to look at her 6 years at HP totally objectively, because this period is a masterclass in understanding the crushing pressures of high-visibility leadership and corporate politics. $19 billion, that was a value of the highly controversial Compaq merger she orchestrated in 2002. And remember the context here. This was happening right in the middle of the chaos of the dot-com bust. Pushing through a merger of that magnitude during an industry-wide downturn takes an incredible amount of conviction. But, as you might guess, that conviction was met with some really fierce public resistance. We basically have two completely opposed viewpoints here. On one side, Fiorina's vision, expanding the footprint, doubling revenue, and pushing through painful changes to force the company to evolve. On the other side, intense opposition, notably from founding family members like Walter Hewlett. Their stance was to resist the massive price tag, object to shifting the company's traditional focus, and basically maintain the status quo rather than risk a dangerous integration. What this perfectly captures is the structural conflict every leader faces, that intense friction between necessary evolution and the comfort of the status quo. So what actually happened? Well, despite all the fierce internal and public battles, the tangible outcomes of this massive integration fundamentally transformed HP's operations. The merger successfully doubled HP's revenue. It vastly expanded their printer and server footprint. And it even positioned them to temporarily become the world's largest personal computer manufacturer. On top of that, she re-engineered their global supply chain across more than 160 countries, which drastically improved their operational efficiency. And the innovation metrics, they totally followed suit. 11. Under her tenure, HP was filing over 11 patents per day. That number represents a doubling of the company's annual innovation output. It proves that even in the midst of massive structural restructuring and crazy corporate battles, the core engineering and inventive engine of the company was heavily accelerated. However, high visibility leadership comes with an incredibly high personal cost. In February 2005, she was abruptly dismissed by the HP board of directors. The sources point to a combination of differing strategic visions for the company's future, damaging leaks to the press, and highly complex board dynamics. It's a stark reminder of the volatile nature of corporate leadership at the absolute highest levels, where strategic misalignment can literally end a tenure overnight. Yet, her philosophy on all this friction is crystal clear. Leadership is about changing the status quo. If you aren't changing things, you aren't leading. For Fiorina, the controversy, the pushback, the board battles, it was all simply the inevitable friction that occurs when a leader flatly refuses to just maintain the comfortable status quo. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, the architecture of leadership, vision and execution. So we're pivoting now from the biographical case study to actually reverse engineering her exact playbook for corporate change. How do you actually implement this stuff? Well, it starts by redefining the word itself. Leadership is not a position, it's a mindset. A leader's true job is to provide the structure. She summarizes this brilliantly in her book as set the frame and set them free. You build the boundaries and the objectives, and then you step back and trust the people you serve to do the work to the best of their abilities. Now, to set that frame properly, a leader has to relentlessly move an organization from here to there. And to do that, you've got to really understand the difference between these two concepts. Strategy is simply a decision about how to invest your resources. Aspiration, on the other hand, is the reason and the purpose behind those investments. True vision is marrying your strategic resources with that purposeful aspiration. You can't delegate that vision, right? A leader has to communicate it relentlessly. But look, a massive vision is totally useless without goals that genuinely challenge the organization to stretch. Goal setting is not about setting goals that are easy to achieve. It is about setting goals that push you and your organization beyond what you thought was possible. If you're only setting easily achievable targets, you're just managing. You aren't leading. Okay, so how do we actually execute on those impossible goals? We use her macro management loop. Step 1, build alignment. You do this through shared goals. Step 2, foster collaboration. This only happens when you have shared measures of success. And step 3, which honestly might be the hardest one, put tough issues right up on the table. You literally cannot pretend they aren't there. Dysfunction thrives when people refuse to deal with internal problems directly. Execution and structure are simply how a company organizes itself to actually get things done without ignoring the elephant in the room. So, the crucial point is really this simple maxim. A company values what it measures, and measures what it values, and people pay attention to what is rewarded. If you want to change an organization's behavior, you don't just give a fancy speech. You fundamentally change the accountability and reward systems. That right there is the architecture of execution. Which leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought for you to take away today. We started out by acknowledging that inaction is a choice with real, heavy consequences. The hard truth about leadership and success is that it can never be taken for granted. It has to continually be invested in. So look at your own professional crossroads. Knowing that playing it safe carries just as much risk as pushing for change, how will you choose to navigate your own tough choices when the status quo is simply no longer enough? Thank you so much for exploring this architecture with us today. Keep learning, keep pushing boundaries, and we'll see you in the next explainer.